Okay, welcome to this listening lesson where we'll be looking at the second part of test number 2 from book number 16. Remember, this is a listening lesson, so if you want to do a real past paper with real exam conditions, then this is not a video for you, because we will be stopping the video, we will be discussing vocabulary halfway through, we will be discussing grammar perhaps halfway through, and we'll be talking about techniques as well. Okay, so let's have a look at what would happen as you finish part 1 of the test. You will have 30 seconds between part 1 and part 2. And if you're a strong candidate, you don't need to spend any more time checking your answers from part 1. I would recommend that you go straight into part 2. So those 30 seconds would be for you to go and have a look at any words or phrases that you would need to go through in readiness for part 2. So imagine you've had your 30 seconds since part 1, and now we're going to be listening to part 2.
Part 2. You will hear a head teacher talking to parents of pupils about changes at the school. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15.
Okay, and you can see there that's about 30 seconds. So it's going to be a head teacher talking about the changes being made, and she's obviously talking to a whole bunch of parents, so it's more like a speech or a talk, and you have 30 seconds from what I can see there in which to look at questions 11 to 15. Now, in the reading exam, I would recommend that you don't look at these distractors, because they are designed to trick you. Plus, in the reading exam, there are 4. So there's 3 that are trying to trick you and 1 that isn't. But number 1, there's only 3. And number 2, because they are fairer, I guess. I mean, it's not that they are fairer. It's just because you have a much more limited time to think. They don't trick you as much in the listening. They don't try to sway you as much in the listening, in which case I do recommend that you look at the distractors. The distractors are these A, B, and C, and then this is the prompt, the first part of the question. Obviously, you need to read the prompt. That's the same case in the reading as well as the listening, but also feel free to read the distractors in the listening as well. I wouldn't recommend doing so in the reading. Okay, so we've got some time, so let's have a look at it. So it used to be, so in the old times, it used to be private home, council building. Okay. What is planned with regard to, okay, so this will be in the future, and this is the lower school. So there's obviously 2 parts to the school, the lower school and the upper school. Maybe it's on a hill, something like that. They'll be improved, all the buildings, new homes, the site, so the area will be used for new homes, or there will be additional school buildings on the lower school site. Okay, they'll be constructed there. Number 13, the catering. Now that's food. It's the kitchen. The catering is the kitchens of a school or a hospital catering, school catering. So for large institutions where they have a dedicated kitchen, that's called the catering. And also you can have catering for weddings as well, so large groups of people. It's been changed because too long, the queues, the lines, another word for lines, are too long. The school timetable, so this could be that the school used to start at 8 in the morning and finish at 3, but because there's some kids who can't wake up properly, maybe it starts at 9 and finishes at 4, in which case that means that the catering, the lunchtime, is shifted 1 hour backwards. So that might be one reason. And it might be that there is dissatisfaction. To be dissatisfied is the adjective, and dissatisfaction is the noun. To be unhappy with. Okay, so the food, the menu, the food on offer, they were not happy with the choices on offer, the students. Or maybe the parents. Somebody wasn't. It's not clear who was unhappy. Okay, 14. Parents are asked to, what are they asked to do? To help their children decide which serving point. Now that's a new one. I don't know what that means. What's a serving point? It might be related to catering, so in the where they collect the food. Yeah, it seems to be still related to food. Yeah, eat. Okay. So they have to decide in advance which serving point to use. Or the parents are asked to share to make sure their children have enough money. Okay, enough money for food. I immediately think that's probably not it, because that's very unusual. If they're paying school fees, then that might be included in the whole thing. So I don't know about B, but C, maybe advise their children on healthy food to eat. Yeah, that could be. Although if the menu is healthy, then they wouldn't need to worry about that. That's what you get. If you don't like it, that's the second option, but both options are healthy. So I'm immediately looking at A, just feeling right now, but be careful because they can be wrong. 15. What does the speaker say about the existing canteen? Now remember, canteen, we have seen this word before in my other video. This is an area where you eat, and it's for a large institution like a school or a hospital or a university, and the quality of the food isn't fantastic. The quality of the furniture is maybe plastic or maybe wood, but nothing very fancy. And it can be quite noisy because the kitchen, you can hear the kitchen, or you can even see the kitchen, the food being prepared on the other side, and you line up with a tray along the side, and somebody puts food onto your tray, to a bowl on your tray, and then you go and sit down. That's how a canteen usually works. Okay, so food will still be served. That suggests that the canteen is closing down, or there's going to be some changes to it. Only staff, teachers, management of the school, maybe ground staff, these are people who maintain the buildings, maybe they're only allowed to come in. And the pupils can take their food into it. So it sounds like there's going to be a new place where you pick up your food, but then you go into the canteen. But again, I can't choose which A, B, or C. That all three of them sound very plausible. Plausible, a nice word for you if you want to use it. Okay, so let's carry on. And I'm just going to put this on, always on top. Seem to stay there. Okay, so I'm going to just skip it because that's 30 seconds. We spent a lot longer than 30 seconds on it, but this is a listening lesson, right? Okay. Let's see what we've got here.
Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15.
Good morning, and thank you for coming here today. I'd like to bring you up to date with changes in the school that will affect your children. As you know, the school buildings date from various times, some from the 1970s, some from the last 5 years, and of course, Dartfield House is over a century old. It was commissioned by a businessman, Neville Richards, and intended as his family home, but he died before it was completed. His heir chose to sell it to the local council, who turned it into offices. A later plan to convert it into a tourist information centre didn't come about through lack of money, and instead it formed the nucleus of this school when it opened 40 years ago. The school has grown as the local population has increased, and I can now give you some news about the lower school site, which is separated from the main site by a road. Planning permission has been granted for development of both sites. The lower school will move to new buildings that will be constructed on the main site. Developers will construct houses on the existing lower school site. Work on the new school buildings should start within the next few months. A more imminent change concerns the catering facilities and the canteen.
Okay.
The canteen is all.
So that was a bit tricky, that one, 12, A, B, or C. Let's just go back and listen carefully for what she said, because she mentions a number of things that are trying to trick you.
When it opened 40 years ago. The school has grown as the local population has increased, and I can now give you some news about the lower school site, which is separated from the main site by a road.
Okay, so if you look on a map, this is the main area of the school, big one. There's a road here, and then it sounds like it's slightly smaller, and the lower one. It might not be based on altitude, it might be based on south and north, who knows? But there is a road between the two. Okay.
Planning permission has been granted for development of both sites.
Development for both sites. Okay, this says the main site only. So all buildings on both sites will be improved. If it said both sites, it would be 12A. But because it's only the main site, that's why I did a cross here. Okay, it's not true.
The lower school will move to new buildings that will be constructed on the main site.
Okay, so the lower school here will be, say for example, here's the main building and another building and maybe another building here, but this is all fields or open space. And I guess what they're going to try and do is maybe build another building there perhaps, and everybody will move onto that site. So this will then be free for what? New homes. We'll have a look here. Additional school buildings. School buildings will be constructed. No. Let's listen.
Developers will construct houses on the existing lower school site.
Okay. So houses, another word for houses or homes. Okay. And the developers will construct it on here. So the school will go to the other side of the road, and there will be no splitting of the school by the road at all. And there may be additional buildings, but not school buildings. So C is out as well.
Work on the new school buildings should start within the next few months.
Okay, so new school buildings only happening on the main site. So, okay, I think now we're going to be moving on to the catering.
A more imminent change concerns the catering facilities and the canteen. The canteen is always very busy throughout the lunch period. In fact, it's often full to capacity because a lot of our pupils like the food that's on offer there.
Okay, they like the food that's on offer there straight away. They like it, so they're not dissatisfied with the food. So straight away I can cancel things out like 13C. So I'm stuck with A or B.
But there's only one serving point, so most pupils have to wait a considerable time to be served.
There's only one serving point. Now there's that word that we came across there. So it can only be A because there's a long line to get to that single serving point. Every single child has to go past that serving point, and there's only one lady or man putting food onto their plate. Okay, and obviously that takes a lot of time. She doesn't mention school timetable. Let's see if she does. It might be trying to trick you.
This is obviously unsatisfactory, as they may have hardly finished their lunch before afternoon lessons start. So, we've had a new food hall built.
Okay, so they talked about when lessons start, so that's trying to trick you with the school timetable, but they're basically saying since there's only one serving point, there's no way that we can reduce the line. So they've had a new, let's just go back a little bit, a new what? Actual words?
Finish their lunch before afternoon lessons start. So, we've had a new food hall built.
Okay, a new food hall. Okay, another word for canteen, I guess, is a food hall. It's a place where you get food served to you and cooked for you.
And this will come into use next week. It'll have several serving areas, and I'll give you more details about those in a minute.
Okay, so instead of one serving point or serving area, there'll be a lot more. Several. Several means 2 or 3.
But one thing we ask you to do to help in the smooth running of the food hall is to discuss with your children each morning which type of food they want to eat that day.
Okay, that's interesting. So which type of food to eat that day? Okay, it's not B and C because I still think it's A, because it might be one serving point is for this particular type of food, that serving point for that particular type of food, and the third serving point for a different one.
so they can go straight to the relevant serving point.
Okay, new word perhaps. Relevant. Straight to the relevant serving point. So that the word relevant, what it's doing here is saying there are three different points, one of them for this type of food, another and another, and you need to go to the relevant serving point. It means the serving point that is important for you in relation to what food you like. So relevant is like important but in relation to something, and in this case it's the food you prefer.
There won't be any junk food. Everything on offer will be healthy. And there's no change to the current system of paying for lunches by topping up your child's electronic payment card online.
Okay, and there's no change to the way the children pay with the special card that can be topped up online. And the food is always healthy, so definitely it's only A. Now let's look at 15.
You may be wondering what will happen to the old canteen. We'll still have tables and chairs in there, and pupils can eat food from the food hall or lunch they've brought from home.
Okay, so they're going to be using two names for it. The food hall, the brand new thing that's opening next week, and then the canteen, which is the old building. So they can take food from the food hall to the canteen, or they can bring their own food that they brought from home to the canteen, and they can probably eat it there. I just want to double check.
Eventually, we may use part of the canteen for storage, but first, we'll see how many pupils go in there at lunchtime.
Okay, just looks like they can take their food into it. There will be no food served there at all. The kitchen's closed in that old canteen. There's no mention of staff. We might hear her say something.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 16 to 20.
16 to 20, that's four questions, and it looks like you get about 20 seconds to look at that. Okay, and notice, so there was no mention of staff at all, so we can easily cancel B out completely. Okay, 16 to 20. Somehow that's happened. Don't know why. Why does it keep doing this? Always gives me twice. Okay. 16 to 20. Did it say 16 to 20? Can I just check again? No.
Pupils go in there at lunchtime.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 16 to 20.
Okay, 1 second. I haven't got the last page. 1 second. Okay, I wasn't looking. I was being a bit silly there. Clearly that says 19 and 20, right? So there we go. Okay, so we've got 20 seconds. So let's just pause it because this is for a video lesson after all. So let's check. What comment does the speaker make about each of the following serving points in the food hall? Okay, now there are, look at that. So she said several, so I said 2 or 3. Turns out there are 3. So there's one serving point here, another serving point here, and a third serving point here. And they're called different names. One of them is called World Adventures. That sounds like world cuisine, different types of food from around the world. Small street food, and then of course the classic Italian, which is always goes down well with teenagers and children, spaghetti and pasta, etc. So there are 4 comments that can be made about these 3 different serving points. Obviously, one of them cannot fit. So the first one, they help to plan the menu. So that means the children choose what would go into the not only the ingredients, but the actual dishes. They decide what they would like. One of them is only vegetarian food. This is different food every week. Okay, maybe street life, I don't know. And daily change. Okay, that's interesting. So different food every week. That means 1 week you're going to have the same type of food the whole week. Whereas D, the menu changes every day. Okay, let's have a look at what they say. Oh, and sorry, we're supposed to also be looking at this quickly. So after school lessons are new, which 2 optional. Swimming, piano, acting, cycling, theatre, sound, and lighting. Okay. Theatre, sound, so theatre, productions, plays, things like that. Sound and lighting. The rest you should know these words. Okay. Let's listen.
Now listen and answer questions 16 to 20.
OK, back to the serving points in the food hall, which will all have side dishes, desserts, and drinks on sale, as well as main courses.
So they have side dishes. So that's maybe a new thing for you. One, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. A typical side dish is a salad. So you have the main dish, then a salad on the side, or a main dish and a soup as the side dish. Okay. Bread depends on what it comes with. But I don't know if bread is a side. Well, maybe a type of bread could be a side dish. That's true.
One serving point we call World Adventures. This will serve a different country's cuisine each day.
Each day, a different country's cuisine each day. So daily change in the menu, different country. Let's see if that's...
Maybe Chinese one day and Lebanese the next. The menus will be planned for a week at a time, so pupils will know what's going to be available the whole of that week.
Now that's a tricky one, okay? So different food every week. So they said that you will know exactly what you're going to get that week. So this week it'll be Chinese, Lebanese, Mexican, British, and who knows, Japanese, let's say, for example. So this week you know exactly what you're going to get on those days. Now, this word is the key here. A change in the menu, right? So the menu is set for 1 week, right? If the menu changes every day, then this would be correct. B would be correct, but it's not, because it's set for the 5 days, Monday to Friday. So different food every week. Ooh, this is a tricky one. I wonder if they're going to ask for A here. I bet you that actually it's going ahead a little bit further.
Street life is also...
Okay. Ooh, that's a tricky one. So daily change in the menu. Different food every week. Ooh. Okay, it's not D, because a daily change in the menu means the menu is changed every day. It's not, it's changed every week. Different food every week. Okay, it must be C. That's a nasty one. Okay.
International, with food from 3 particular cultures. We'll ask pupils to make suggestions, so perhaps sometimes there'll be food from Thailand, Ethiopia, and Mexico, and then one of them will be replaced by Jamaican food for a week or 2.
Okay, so she started talking about street life now. This is number 2 of my little thing here. And she spoke about international food, and pupils can make suggestions, I think the words were.
So perhaps sometimes there'll be the whole of that week. Street life is also international, with food from 3 particular cultures. We'll ask pupils to make suggestions.
Make suggestions, help to plan. Okay.
So perhaps sometimes there'll be food from Thailand, Ethiopia, and Mexico, and then one of them will be replaced by Jamaican food for a week or 2.
Okay, there we go. That's A there.
The speedy Italian serving point will cater particularly for the many pupils who don't eat meat or fish.
Okay, there we go. Only vegetarian food. It's very clear. That's what she's talking about there. No meat, no fish.
They can be sure that all the food served there is suitable for them. There'll be plenty of variety, so they shouldn't get bored with the food. OK, that's all on the new food hall. Now, after-school lessons. These are very popular with pupils, particularly swimming. In fact, there's a waiting list for lessons. Cycling is another favourite, and I'm delighted that dozens of pupils make use of the chance to learn to ride in off-road conditions. It means that more and more cycle to and from school every day. As you know, we have a well-equipped performance centre, and we're going to start drama classes in there too.
We're going to start drama. Okay, so the students love swimming, they love cycling, but their keyword there is new. So going to start, and she spoke about drama classes. Now, theatre, sound and lighting, drama and theatre are very much related, but drama classes is acting. It's not just setting up the stage and putting the sound systems up and controlling the sound or putting the lighting in. Okay, there might be, the next one might be E, because you need the drama to have, we need the actors to be lit and to have good sound. So we might hear her say that theatre, sound and lighting might be the other thing.
Pupils will be able to join in just for fun or work up to taking part in a play. We hope to put on at least one a year. We already teach a number of pupils to use the sound and lighting systems in the centre.
We already teach, okay, that's straight away out. So the only possible option is piano, because if they already teach sound and lighting, then it can only be B. And this is where you would go on to, if you've used something called deduction, which is where you deduce, deduction, which is where you deduce that the only possible other option is B. You don't have to sit and listen any longer. You can go straight to section 3 now, because that's going to be even more difficult than section 2, and you need more time. So from deduction, we know the other one she's going to talk about is piano, but let's just double check.
And a former pupil has given a magnificent grand piano to the school, so a few pupils will be able to learn at the school instead of going to the local college.
Will be able to, will, future.
As many of them do at the moment.
That is the end of part 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers to part 2.
Okay, and by now you would have checked your answers and gone on to part 3, hopefully, because you used deduction to work out that the answer is piano. Okay, I'm pretty confident with this one, but I just want to double check what the answer is for question 16. So let's have a look at the official answers. Let me just change the colors so we can be sure. What? Okay, number 11 is C, not B. Let's just check again. Let's listen again. So Dartford House School used to be, the school used to be a private home. Okay, let's check again.
Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15.
Good morning, and thank you for coming here today. I'd like to bring you up to date with changes in the school that will affect your children. As you know, the school buildings date from various times, some from the 1970s, some from the last 5 years.
Okay, so the school buildings are from the 1970s until relatively recently. Say this was 2016, so until 2011. Okay, those are the buildings. Okay.
And of course, Dartfield House is over a century old.
But Dartfield House field house is over a century old. That means it's more than 100 years old. So, right, why does she mention Dartfield House, I wonder? So Dartfield House School. Does she mean to say that there is a house here and that's the school, but there's a house over here which is 100 years old, and then the school's also on this property? Okay, so let's check.
It was commissioned by a businessman, Neville Richards, and intended as his family home.
Okay, it was intended as his family home. The house was his home. Okay.
But he died before it was completed.
I didn't listen to that. So it was never completed. Not completed. Okay. So the building never went completely finished. So there's these other buildings. Oh my goodness. Easiest of the questions. You know, usually it's hard, easier than harder and harder and harder. And I missed it.
His heir chose to sell it to the local council, who turned it into offices.
Wait. Sell it to a local council who turned it into offices. But wait, okay, now this is where it's ambiguous. I'm sorry. I mean, I understand now it wasn't completed, but so they turned it into offices for themselves or offices for the general population. Because if it was for themselves, then I would definitely say it's C. But they turned it into offices, and this word office, local council office, I guess, yeah, I guess it is, you know. A nasty one. I'm not happy with this one, but I guess the key word is it's not completed, therefore it can't have been a home because you can't live in something that's not completed. So B is out. So, okay, fine. What a mistake that I made there. Okay, but it's a tricky one, this one. And let's just listen the last bit here.
A later plan to convert it into a tourist information centre didn't come about through...
Didn't come about. Now, the meaning of come about, whoops, what's happening there? Didn't come about, I mean, it didn't happen. Didn't come about, didn't happen. Okay, so that's definitely not the one. Okay, let's check the others. That's correct. B and A is correct. A, C. Okay, mistake there. D, A, and B. And the last one is in either order B and C. B and C. Okay, so they don't think right. Now this is where I would, if I was a examiner and I saw this, I would raise this with them, because if there's a change in the menu, as I've already said, that means that the menu is set and they've changed it. They've changed the selection, right? They've changed the selection of that menu. A daily change in food available, well, that's different, right? Because the food available is changing from Mexican to Lebanese to Ethiopian or whatever it is that she said as an example. But the menu doesn't change because the menu's been set for 1 week. Now the problem is that the word menu is ambiguous. Menu can mean food available, but it can also mean something that's been set up by a restaurant. So that is our menu, that is our set choice of food. And it doesn't change, it will change next week. But doesn't mean that you've only got one thing on the menu. You've got one selection. that doesn't change until next week. So this is where I would say they have not thought through, the examiners have not thought through how the word menu has two meanings. And yeah, okay, so I made a mistake in number 11, but I'm not happy with 16. I think that's not fair. Different food every week is what I put. Different food every week. I mean, again, that's perfectly correct, because there will be different. If this week is Mexican, Ethiopian, Thai, Uzbek, and Tajik, right? Those 5, then why would... Oh, I'm not happy. Anyway, everything else is okay. So let me know if you've got any suggestions about maybe I've missed something, or I'm not understanding what they're trying to get at for number 16. But I think the rest is quite clear. Thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next video.